Hello again, everyone. I'm Chris Sherritt, and that's Robert Hardy. This is the Citizen Sports Weekly for the week of April 3rd. April 4th is the anniversary when I met my wife, so that's why that date's always very special. It'll be 17 years tomorrow that I met my wife. And
my parents were married on April 4th.
wow.
April 4th, 1986, ladies and gents.
Wow. Interesting.
Yeah.
So for this week here, April 3rd, 2014, and we got a couple topics to discuss. We'll get right into it. We have the Final Four on Saturday, and we got some good games. I mean, I think that nobody saw Kentucky and UConn getting to the Final Four. Although Kentucky, I think there were a few people that said they wouldn't be surprised if Kentucky made it to the Final Four.
Yeah.
But UConn came out of left field.
Yeah, a little bit. UConn, certainly when you look at their resume, they had that big loss to Louisville. They're a good team, but, they were seeded 7th, had to go through Villanova. But, and of course they had, Iowa State on that part of the bracket, and that was the region, Virginia and Michigan State also in that region. So tough region to go through, but they survived. And, Napier is a heck of a player.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Arguably the best player in the tournament right now, and that's why UConn is in the Final Four.
Yeah. Like I said, it just, UConn was it just amazed me the way it seemed like they got better as the tournament went along.
Mm-hmm.
And like you said, this team that got blown out by Louisville, and I don't think anybody saw them. Because usually if you see a team play in the conference tournament and they look good, you might say, they got an outside shot to go to the Final Four. Even if they don't win the conference tournament, if they go to the championship game, even if they lose, man, this team, they might have ran out of gas in that last game. But UConn is, like I said, they turned it up to a different notch, and you got to give them credit. And Kentucky, like we said, nobody's surprised by that in a way, just because the talent they have, Calipari being a great coach, Florida, we've talked about them yet, but Florida is the favorite. They're the number 1 seed overall, and they've won 30 games in a row. And of course, that last loss was to UConn, and that would be kind of fun to see those two teams hook up. So, like I said, it's going to be interesting to see what happens. Can Florida, now that the heavyweights are on, Louisville, Michigan State didn't make it. The teams that a lot of people thought had a good chance of winning the title. Now that Florida, which was the favorite, seems even like more of a favorite, can they finish the deal? Can they actually win another national championship?
Yeah, the Gators going up against UConn, that to me will be an interesting game because UConn played Florida.
Well, that's what I mean. Yeah, and I apologize. I messed that one up. I'm getting my Final Four matchups a little incorrect there. So yes, they will play against each other. So we will get to see that if UConn can knock them off twice.
Yeah, and it's at this stage, these teams have earned earned their place. So it's whoever shows up that night. It's not just about who's the top seeded team. As we've seen throughout this tournament, Kentucky, I thought they weren't they weren't what you think of as
right. They should have been a higher seed.
And but they. I think one of the reasons they got that draw is because of the third round matchup against Wichita State, and so they beat them.
Yeah.
They come back the next weekend, beat Louisville, beat Michigan. It's
scary.
That's quite a stretch.
It's scary that this team could win the national title as an 8th seed.
Yeah.
A team as talented as they are being an 8th seed, and then just actually being an 8th seed.
They're capable.
If I remember, I think the last 8th seed to win the national title was Villanova.
I think you're right.
1985, knocking off Georgetown. So, Wisconsin, I think they're almost the forgotten team here.
Yeah.
Kentucky and UConn.
A lot of people in Arizona coming out of that region.
Kentucky and UConn have the pedigrees, and then Florida just being the overwhelming favorite, and everybody just seems to be forgetting about Wisconsin. And it just really will be interesting to see how they handle this and how they deal with this, and can they play in this national spotlight, and are they the hungriest team? Because like I said, nobody. I don't think many people pick Wisconsin to get to the Final Four. Not really. I'm sure a few people did, but not that many.
Yeah.
And it's going to be interesting to see how this breaks down and what national championship matchup we get. But if I had to put money down, it'd be tough to bet against Kentucky.
Yeah,
I mean, I think it's going to be Kentucky and Florida. I think we're going to have an SEC
a rematch.
championship in the national championship game. So
That would be the fourth time they've met this year. And rematch of the SEC tournament championship, which is interesting because, you look at this and, two of the Final Four teams are from the SEC. And what were they saying about Florida before this tournament began? Oh, they came out of the SEC. That's not a
Right.
basketball conference.
it is now.
Well,
Yeah.
half of the Final
Yeah.
Four is from the
Right.
SEC, so
Yeah.
who's laughing now?
Yes, absolutely. Well, our next subject is something that, basketball's ending and baseball's just getting started. And there's just something special, and we discussed a little bit about it last week, that baseball was stupid in starting the season out in Australia 2 weekends ago where nobody saw the games really. And this week, it's a little bit different. And, I think baseball is one of those sports that we kind of take for granted. And this is the time of the year when every team has some optimism, every fan has optimism about their teams, and unfortunately the Yankees and the Mets both 0-2 already. And the Yankees have lost to the Astros, which, you shake your head. I'm like, yes, it's on the road, but how can you lose to the Astros? This is a team that's lost 100 games, I believe, the last 3 seasons. And then the Mets have lost to the Nationals, but the Nationals are supposed to be a contender this year, so it's not too much of a shock, though. But baseball is just going to be so tough to figure out this year. I think there's so many different things, and teams you think could be the favorites or I think are going to fade away as the season goes along, and a team that you might not expect is going to be there at the end, maybe making a run for the postseason. And and obviously being in New York State, it's Yankees and Mets here, and obviously the big thing about the Yankees, it's Derek Jeter's last year, and he got some cowboy boots and cowboy hat from the Astros. Oh boy, I could see Derek walking around with those cowboy boots. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think people are kind of forgetting that the Yankees really don't have a lot of good starting pitching. Tanaka's unproven. Sabathia got lit up in the opener, and we got Ivan Nova. It's just not a solid starting lineup, starting rotation. And they're going to score some runs, but just that rotation just does not inspire confidence. The bullpen, there's no more Mariano guys. This is it. He's gone. And you got Robertson's closing. So, and he could be effective, but he's not going to be Mariano. So the Yankees, I'll tell you, this is a team, it reminds me of the Yankees of the late 60s, early 70s. There's not going to be a superstar next year after Jeter retires. A lot of middle-of-the-road guys. And I can see the Yankees being in this. They're not good enough to get to the playoffs, but they're not bad enough where they're really a horrible team, where they're going to win around 75 to 82 games a year for the next few years. Because what are they going to do? They're going to try to rebuild by free agency every year? It just doesn't work. You've got to start. I don't think it's coincidence the Yankees got good in the mid to late 90s when guys like Pettit, Jeter, Rivera, Bernie Williams, those guys came up and started doing very well. I think that's what started
through their farm system.
Right, that's what I mean, their farm system. And it's okay to trade for a Paul O'Neill or a Scott Brocious or Chuck Knobloch. Oh, Chuck Knobloch was a free agent, I'm sorry. But, free agents, I always think, and not just in baseball, but any sport, should be complementary players. You shouldn't sign a free agent with the idea like this is the guy who is going to be our superstar and carry our team. Because I think the Angels have found out the last couple of years with Pujols and then Josh Hamilton that these guys, especially sluggers that are in their late 20s to early 30s, their shelf life's expired.
Yeah.
And you're stuck with a big contract. Look at the Tigers with Prince Fielder. He's gone. He's in Texas now.
Yeah.
So we'll see what happens. Robert, what are your impressions so far of the baseball season, or what you think is going to happen this season?
Oh, one of the I think to throw a few teams out there that I think will be intriguing picks. I think they'll be postseason teams. Of course, the Red Sox.
Yes.
I think they're a team that now they're built for future success. I think they coming off last year, this is a team that could they could win multiple World Series over the next 5, 6, 7 years. Of course, Detroit's always there. I think getting rid of Fielder actually was a smart move.
Yeah.
Because you have a guy who is a power hitter in a pitcher's park, and I never obviously the money was great, but I never understood that marriage really from his perspective. Looking in the NL, the Dodgers have spent boatloads of money.
Yes.
They've surpassed the Yankees. They're they're the number one spender now. and we'll see if that pays off. Of course, we've seen with the Yankees before that it not always does. And so, they're a team worth watching. I think they have an enormous amount of talent, solid pitching staff, as long as Kershaw stays healthy. They should be a playoff team, a World Series contender this year. And of course, I have to come back to my Nationals.
Yeah, I was just going to say, you took the words right out. I think the Nationals are, I don't want to say they're a dark horse because, a lot of people are picking them. I think last year was the year there was all these expectations, and Davey Johnson, I just think that did a horrible job managing this team, and the team suffered. And I know there were a couple of little injuries there and there, but every team gets that. But I like St. Louis in the National League. I just something about the Cardinals that
never count out the Cardinals.
That's what I mean. It just seems like that this is a machine, and every other year this team machine gets on a roll. And you could see a St. Louis Washington NL Championship Series. American League, like you said, Boston is so tough. They're the defending champs, and they didn't really lose a lot, so to speak, and they seem to be still as good. And, you look at, like I said, the Yankees, I think, are done. The Orioles, they're a team that got hot a couple of years ago, and you wonder if they can pull it back again. Detroit's going to be tough to figure out, though. That's the team. I mean, is the pitching good enough? They lost Pfister, and even though Fielder wasn't a matchup for that, good match for the team, he did provide some good offense, and he also protected Cabrera in the lineup.
Right.
I want to think that somebody in the American League West may step up. Oakland, there's a team that, this is the team that always makes the playoffs, and they just can't get by the first round.
Moneyball.
Moneyball, whatever. Yeah, Billy B. And maybe this is the year they get by and they get to the World Series. You never know. The Rangers, I think, are still halfway decent. They still got some good offense on that team. And the Angels are a team here, like you said, they've spent all this money. Pujols, Hamilton, why? I think you're gonna see the wild card. Of course, there's more than one wild card now, but I think the first wild card team is going to come out of the West. Mm-hmm. That's my hunch, and I don't, like I said, I could see Boston, and like I said, Boston. I like Boston, and well, I'll tell you, it's tough though. That second team, and I think Boston's so clearly ahead of the rest of the teams that. Mm-hmm. They're the favorites to go again, but I think someone is going to come out of the AL West, whether it's Anaheim, whether it's Texas or Oakland, but let's say maybe Oakland and Boston. What the heck, so.
Well, I'll throw out one more team from the NL that I think we both overlooked, but don't sleep on Pittsburgh. This is a team that that if you look at their starting lineup. Not the greatest starting lineup in the world. If you look at their hitters, not the greatest batting lineup in the world. But this is a team that they've been able to put it together, and they're off to a good start so far. A friend of mine from Medina High School, Brian Moriarty, is a Pirates season ticket holder. So a little shout out for him. But this is a team that I think could be around come October. They could slip into one of those wild card spots, I think, and they could be a threat. I don't know if they're quite built for the World Series yet, World Series run, but I think they've certainly improved from where they were for so many years.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. They got a winning record. They made the postseason for the first time in 21 years last year, and Mark Del Piano, a guy I went to high school with. Is a scout for the Pirates, and I think he's done it. I think he's the guy who found Jason Grilli.
Oh, wow.
For the Pirates, and Jason Grilli, who's from Baldwinsville High School, and so I'd love to see the Pirates contend, but I just wonder they just spent so much energy to get to the postseason last year, and they lost Burnett. You wonder, do they have enough horses this year to get them back? And again, like we said, St. Louis is going to be tough. Mm-hmm. That division's a tough division. Cincinnati's usually good. The Cubs are going to stink this year, but that's a tough division. And you just wonder, what's going to happen. Can Pittsburgh do it 2 years in a row? Because a lot of these teams, really, they only get there 1 year, and that's it. They do everything they can. Like, look at Milwaukee a couple of years ago. They basically went all or nothing. They made the postseason. They didn't go very far. And then the team's dismantled, and they're a horrible team again. Hopefully the Pirates won't be like that, because we would like to see them be competitive. So, Robert, anything else you want to add? Or?
I think that does it, Chris.
All right, folks, we appreciate you watching. Spread the links, spread the word. We appreciate your support, and we'll see you next week. Thanks.